Laura was an attorney in her 30s, working in Baltimore, and on the surface, she had a pretty good life. But things just weren't going the way she wanted them to be going. She didn't have the social life she wanted to have. She wasn't finding the man that she wanted to be with. And she just didn't feel like she was really being appreciated the way she wanted to be appreciated at work. And so one day, she just got fed up and she decided to rage apply to jobs all over the world. And then she actually found one in Guam. And so she kind of decided to rage quit her job and move to Guam. And that was just the beginning of Laura's reinvention story. Hi, my name is Hannah. And after burning out over the age of 40, I decided to rediscover what I really wanted and reinvent myself to be who I really wanted to be. Along the way, I'm talking to other women in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond who have reinvented themselves to show me and you that no matter where you are, no matter what it seems like, you always have more options than you think. So welcome to She Reinvented. So today's reinvention story is about an unexpected opportunity when you most want it, and then taking that opportunity and letting yourself open up to a completely different side of you. In Baltimore, Laura had been kind of preoccupied with finding a boyfriend, finding a life partner. She always worried about how she looked. She always was concerned with the opinion of others. And in Guam, she decided to let all of that go. She got more into running in the jungle and doing waterfall hikes than she cared about looking good and doing her hair and her makeup. And this whole adventurous side of her personality completely started to emerge. So if you are getting ready to make a big move, maybe move to a different location, this can give you some inspiration about how you can leverage that to become a different person or let a different side of your personality come out. And if you stick to the end, I actually asked some questions about this whole job in Guam. It wasn't the main focus. Guam wasn't the main focus, but it turns out that Guam is kind of a cool country for early to mid-level professionals to perhaps find opportunities to continue their career, maybe for a year, 2 years, or just for a break from what they're doing, because Guam is looking for more professionals. So stay till the end to listen to her advice to other professionals about possibly finding jobs in Guam. And with that said, let's get into today's reinvention. I quit my job as a lawyer to move to Guam. Laura is the host of the podcast BJJ Babes, and she talks to women who have gotten into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that's just part of her reinvention story. She's also going to tell us about how she moved to Guam after a bad day at work, and then the kind of ensuing reinvention stories that happened after that. So welcome, Laura, so much. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So in a nutshell, if you had to say that reinvention story in a nutshell, how would you tell people, oh, I heard you had a reinvention story? What would you tell them?
I would tell them that I wasn't fully satisfied with my life or my job. And one day, after a particularly bad day, I basically rage applied to a job in Guam. And when I got the offer, I left everything behind except for my cat. And I moved to a tropical island in the middle of nowhere and refound the person that I've always been. And I haven't looked back.
Wow. So let's take me back to late 2017. You're working as an attorney in Baltimore. What is your day-to-day like, and how are you feeling?
So I think I wouldn't say I was unhappy, because I will always find ways to be happy no matter what my life looks like. But I would say I was dissatisfied. I had checked all the boxes of the things I should be doing, gone to grad school, gotten a job, was acting responsibly. And I was looking at my life and I didn't have the things that I thought I should have at that point at 31. I was single, and I was looking at all my friends, and they were getting married, they were having kids, they were moving out of the city, and I just didn't have the life that I wanted. And I was working all the time.
And did you want that life? Did you want to be married? Did you want to move out of the city? At that time, did you think that that was what you wanted?
I think I wanted a partner. I was that person of, oh, when I have that significant other, I'll get a dog. When I have that significant other, I'll buy a house and I'll go on
Mm,
that trip. Because I think that was kind of what was sold to me as what life should look like. And I was trying to fit that mold.
so you're putting things on hold until when you got a partner.
Yes. Putting my life on hold, essentially.
What were some of the biggest things that you wanted to do that you were putting on hold until when you had a partner?
I think a big one was get a dog. I really
Yeah?
wanted
And now
a
you have
dog.
2?
Yeah, and it's a time thing too. I mean, there were a lot of work.
Mhm.
I was working a lot. I didn't have the time or the money for it. And I think also I was so consumed with finding that partner that like it was, well, what if I meet somebody and they don't like dogs or we should get the dog together? And I was thinking more about making myself the person that someone else would want to be with rather than being the person I wanted to be and then meeting someone who fit with my life.
Yeah, that's that's something that I think a lot of people do, women and men, and I assume men do it. I definitely know a lot of women do it.
Yeah.
And at
Yeah.
some point, hopefully, we get over it.
Yeah.
But what was your job like? What was the office or the work life like? You said you were dissatisfied.
There wasn't a good work life balance. I was working almost every Sunday. There were times where I was going into the office when it was still dark and I was
Ugh.
leaving when it was still dark, and like I wasn't even making an amount of money that was
Mm.
worth that level of sacrifice, and I was constantly getting sick from stress. I would get this stress induced bronchitis and I would have this horrible cough. At one point, I was breathing out of an albuterol inhaler. So my
Oh my
health wasn't
gosh.
that.
So take me back to the day when you rage applied. I really want to hear about this. I want to hear about the day. I want to hear about how you found this job. I love that
Mhm.
term. You rage applied to a job in Guam. Tell me how that
Yeah.
happened.
So I'd been job searching for a minute, applying all over the place, looking at different postings. And I was open to moving geographically, but at the time I was thinking much less extreme. I was looking at Nashville or somewhere else on the East Coast. I wasn't even, I remember seeing postings for Hawaii and being like, nope, that's too far. And I saw a posting for Guam that I was qualified for. Um, and I looked up Guam on a map, and I still remember looking it up because Hawaii was here from the mainland. And then I had to keep scrolling over, and it was this huge expansive ocean. Scroll over a little more, scroll over a little more, and then finally you see Guam, and it's this tiny little island, and it's right by the Philippines and Japan. And my reaction was, no, like that looks like it's in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't sound, I didn't look it up and realize that it was a tropical island. Maybe that would have changed things.
Okay.
But either way, I was like, no, I'm not applying there. And then I cannot remember exactly what happened at work the day I rage applied, but I just remember at the end of the day being so frustrated and so over just everything that I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to send them my resume. They're not going to hire me anyway. It's fine. I'll just send it. I'm so over this place.
And what was it, a similar type of job? Was it working as a lawyer in some capacity?
Yes, it was a similar job.
Okay. And so and so how long had you been working at your current job when you reached that point when you rage applied?
About 4.5 years.
Okay, so you were like really ready to move on.
Yeah,
So you rage applied, and then what happened?
I got an email for an interview. Um, and
What went through your mind?
I think I was like, okay. Like this is real.
And were you
And
ready to actually, at that point, were you ready to move forward with it? Or did you have to convince yourself? Or were you like, okay, no, actually, I'll do this?
I had to convince myself. And what I told myself was an interview is an interview and it's always good to get the experience.
Hmm.
And I didn't think I would actually get the offer.
So what was the interview like? And then how did you get the offer?
The interview was over video teleconference, so I didn't have to go to Guam or anything. Um, and it was probably an hour. And they told me a time frame for extending offers. And so I'd gone through the interview and was like, okay, this might actually be something I would be willing to do and be interested in because this seems like a good opportunity. I got a good vibe from the people I was interviewing with. They did mention brown tree snakes, and I wasn't aware that Guam has a problem with brown tree snakes as an invasive species, and I am terrified of snakes.
Oh my gosh.
So I did have a moment of I don't think I can move to a place that is overrun with snakes. It
Are
turns
they
out
are they
it's not as bad
poisonous?
as they're not
No.
poisonous. They're
Okay.
not venomous. They're just invasive, and the problem is much more overstated than what it actually is when you live there. It's
Okay.
not there's not snakes everywhere hanging from the trees as you
Okay. That's definitely what went
right?
through my mind. Trees with just
Yeah,
snakes hanging from them.
yeah, that was what was going through my mind. So the deadline for when they said I was going to hear from them had passed. So I was like, I'd moved on. Mentally, I had moved on.
Can I ask
I
how long was it supposed to be for? Was it just like a year or was it indefinite?
think it was a minimum of 2 years.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So I'd moved on mentally. The deadline had passed, and then one day I saw a call coming out on my phone, and the area, it tells you the area it's coming from, and it says Northern Mariana Islands. And I was like, oh, I think I'm getting a job offer.
And so, did you know, I'm assuming you got the job offer, but did you know
I
you were
did.
going to say yes? How did you convince yourself to say yes? Because it's one thing to rage apply, it's another thing to take the interview, it's another thing to consider it. But then when
Mhm.
push comes to shove, how in the world did you make that decision? That's a huge decision.
Yeah, I think part of it, even in the pit of my stomach, I knew it wasn't something I could say no to. The
Mm.
opportunity was something I could not say no to. So I asked um, the person extending the offer, could I have a few days just to talk it
Mm.
over with my family and think about it? And it wasn't
That's a
really
great
talk.
idea. That's a great idea. I love that. You don't always have to decide in the moment. You can just take a few moments or days to decide to think about it.
Yeah, and I honestly think I knew that I was going to accept from the beginning, but I needed to it wasn't even talking about it with my family. It was I needed to have some time to wrap my head around the concept of such a major life change and move.
Mhm.
And I spent those days basically I was like on Instagram and Google trying to see what does this place even look like.
And what did you discover? What were you seeing when you were looking, doing your
Found
research?
out yeah, I found out that it is a tropical island that is very popular with Chinese and not Chinese, Japanese and Korean tourists.
Hmm.
So I saw a lot of Instagram photos taken by
Okay.
people from Japan on vacation in Guam.
Does it have beautiful beaches? Like white
Yes.
sandy beaches, what you can imagine?
Yeah, I saw white sandy beaches with crystal clear, beautiful blue water, and I was like,
Okay.
well, I could do that.
Mhm. And what about the city that you're gonna be moving to? Was it an actual city or was it like a village?
So Guam is a place that is made up of villages,
Mhm.
and they their capital is Hagatnya, which is where I worked. The main tourist area there is a village called Tuman, and they do have high-rise hotels there. And I think a part of it that helped me was knowing that essentially they have this village called Tuman where the tourists go and they have high-end luxury shopping there, like Cartier, Louis Vuitton. And I'm like, well, if this is a place that these really high-end retailers will open stores, then
You
it's
won't
not
be
going to
too far out in the middle of nowhere.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, at that point, had you lived your whole life in Baltimore? Is that where you're from?
I'm from Maryland. I did go to law school in California.
Mhm.
So I lived in California for a time and I studied abroad in London. So I'd traveled and I'd lived other places, but I know when I graduated law school, my plan was always to go back to Maryland, and
Okay.
I anticipated spending my whole life in Maryland at that point.
Okay. So you traveled a bit, but you hadn't really lived overseas, but it's not like you were completely sheltered either.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So 4 days go by, whatever, week goes by, you come back and you've decided to go. Okay. What happens then? I mean, how do you start getting ready for this?
Well, it
You were
started
32 at the
with
time. Is that correct?
it was 2018, so I was about to turn 32. So
Okay.
I was 31. I turned 32 in June,
Okay.
and I remember the way I accepted the job was I went to the bar down the street from my house, and I had a like tequila, soda, and lime drink. And then I called
Oh, you took a drink before you called.
yeah, to accept the job. It was like liquid courage. And then getting ready to move, it was a lot of the hardest part was getting my cat out there. It
Mm,
is extremely hard to bring animals both onto and off the island. It bringing them on is hard because they are rabies free. And so
mm,
you need to get, it's like bringing an animal to Hawaii, which is
mhm.
also rabies free. You need to get a certain blood test done to test your pet's rabies antibodies. And you need to make a lot of arrangements, and there's a lot of paperwork. I hired a shipper who helped me with a lot of it. She was amazing.
Okay.
Yeah. The other issue is United Airlines is the only airline that flies to and from Guam, the only domestic airline.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, and it's even worse now. At the time they had suspended their pet shipping program, then they then
Oh,
brought it back up. So my cat came like 4 months after I got there.
oh
But
gosh.
since then, they have completely discontinued it. So that unless you are military on orders, you cannot bring a dog or a cat off island on United Airlines. You have
Wow.
to spend thousands of dollars. I spent $6,000 getting 3 animals off that island.
Oh my gosh, that is crazy.
Yeah.
So you got the offer. What month did you get the offer?
I believe I got it in late January.
Late January. And how much time did you have to get everything ready to go?
I did have a lot of time. My mother was turning 60 in March,
Hmm.
and I she was having a big 60th birthday party, and it meant a lot to her that I be there for her birthday party. And so
Hmm.
I told them I will be there. Like my start date was beginning of April, and that was
Okay.
in part because I was like, I will take this if as long as I can come there after my mom's birthday.
And so, but didn't you have to sell your things, vacate your apartment? How did that go? Put things in storage?
Yeah,
How
so
did you
luckily,
deal with your stuff? Did you sell it? Did you put it in storage?
so um work actually paid to move me.
Mm.
So I actually was able to take a lot of my stuff with me, and um, including my car, which was a huge deal.
That's
Um,
amazing. Okay, that's great.
yeah, yeah. And then I was in a living situation. I was living in a house with roommates, and we were not on a set lease. We were month to month.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was able, and one of my roommates, she's still one of my closest friends. So I told her I probably right away so that she had plenty of notice to find someone.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's good. And then the rest just in storage or at parents' houses or something?
My
Parents' house, yeah.
They still
Yeah.
have boxes of my things in their basement.
Yep. At one point in my life, I had boxes in New Mexico, Oregon, Barcelona, and Arizona. It was all over the place.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, that's just what happens. So
Mhm.
what was going through your mind during these 4 months? At any point, did you, regret making the decision? Were you afraid? What was the internal journey like?
I was terrified. Um, I was terrified that I was going to hate it, that I was not going to have any friends.
And
I,
did you agree to a minimum of 2 years? Because it's one thing if you can leave whenever you want, but if you agree to 2 years, that's quite a long time.
I did. I did agree to a minimum of 2 years. And one of my friends in Baltimore was like, look, like, if you absolutely hate it, like, that's like time flies. Like, it's a
Hmm.
lot of time, but it's also not a lot of time when you look at
Hmm.
the grand scheme of your life. And so
It can seem
I,
like a lot of time to commit to ahead of time when you don't know what it's going to
yes,
be like.
yes, absolutely. And it was scary. It was really scary, just the concept of, I've never been to this place. I've only seen photos. I don't know what I'm getting into. But there was also a lot of excitement.
And what were you hoping it would bring to your life? Because you had said that you were dissatisfied so far. What were you kind of hoping it might bring to you?
I think I was hoping, I think career wise, it was a big change.
Okay. Was it a
And
step forward in your career? Was it,
yes,
like, positive? It wasn't like you were going to, I don't know, do something completely different.
no, it was a step forward. It was a significant pay increase.
Oh, oh, nice.
Yeah. Um, and so there was that. There was the fact that it was actually a step forward career wise. And then
Okay.
there was also, I was hopeful, like, I, maybe I'm a little bit of a romantic. I've always kind of had this, fantasy of meeting the right person. And so I was
Mhm.
like, maybe I'll meet somebody there.
Mhm.
I had all of those hopes. I was like, well, there's military bases. It's not a big population, but there's military bases, and so there'll probably be a male heavy.
Mhm.
It's funny, actually, dating in Guam is actually terrible.
I do wanna hear about that, but that's funny. I mean, I think that's perfectly normal when you move to a different country. If you've ever
Yeah,
read a book like Eat, Pray, Love or any of these books, that can go through your mind like, "Well, maybe I'll have some romantic whirlwind story."
yeah.
So
I think a part of me was thinking that, and then there was also there's this opportunity. I'd been told by the people at my work, people who make the most of Guam are very active, outdoorsy people. And so I
hmm,
was like, okay, like, I'm going to dive into that when I get there, whatever I can find on that side of things. And I came up with this mindset of just really pushing myself to do things outside of my comfort zone, and I made up my mind that I would do that before I left. And that's
hmm.
that's where the decision to go to Guam was big, but then the real life change happened when I got there and made that switch.
Wow. So you said you made the switch. Was that not how you were before? Were you less active, less engaged?
I would say I've always been an active person. Like, before I moved, I ran half marathons. I was really into yoga. I liked paddleboarding, but I was also very risk averse.
Mm.
Like, I was really scared of open water. I When I lived in California, I went to school in Malibu where there's a big surf culture, and I never learned to surf because I was so afraid of the danger of sharks. And I was outdoorsy and active, but I didn't take a lot of risks.
I
Um,
understand. This has happened to me before. You kind of decide that you're going to change your identity about something. And that
yeah,
can be hard without any external trigger. But when you have an external trigger, you can use that to your advantage and say, okay, I'm going to use this to change this about. I'm going to start seeing myself deliberately as a different type of person. Is that what you
yeah,
did?
I think so. Yeah.
Did that
I think
start once you got there, or was it kind of it started before you got there? Like you decided, okay, this is my chance to now kind of change my identity a little bit.
I think it I think the wheels and the thought process was in my head before I got there. But then once I got there, I think part of it, sometimes social groups can affect things. And
Mhm.
I was always active when I lived in Maryland, but not all of my friends had the same active hobbies that I had. And then on Guam, the way that I made friends was pursuing those outdoor active hobbies. So I was surrounding myself with people that had that mindset. And so it helped me push myself to be more open and less risk averse.
Cool.
I love it. So what was it like the very first week? You get off the plane. What was your first day, first week like?
Oh man. So when I got off the plane, the flight from Honolulu gets in the evening. It was a Sunday evening, and um, I got picked up at the airport by people from my new job. And the person who dropped me at my hotel made this comment: Guam doesn't really have any zoning laws. So, he was dropping me at my hotel in Tumon at the Westin. He's like, so you're going to see like gun ranges next to strip clubs, next to luxury stores. And it it very much like Tumon, that is what like it's the wild Western Pacific.
How funny.
And I was like, what is this place? Where am I? What did I get myself into?
That sounds, I can only imagine. I'm kind of imagining like a Western town here in Arizona or New Mexico, but set in a tropical island.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I think there's certain parts of America that are kind of the last frontier. I think
Hmm.
Guam is one, Alaska is one, and you
Hmm.
don't realize it until you go to those places.
Wow. So what
Yeah,
was it like your first work or first week or month at work? Like, what was that like integrating into the new work environment?
yeah. Honestly, I loved it.
Nice.
Guam is a place people are so welcoming. Um, they, especially if you're coming there from somewhere else, I've noticed people who are from Guam are really care about you having a good impression and giving you a good impression of their home. Um,
Hmm.
and so, when I first got to the office, I had coworkers inviting me to family birthday parties. Mother's Day was pretty much right after I got there, and one of my coworkers invited me to her family's Mother's Day
Oh,
celebration.
nice.
Yeah, so it was I felt very welcomed, and it felt like I was somewhere where people were excited that I was there. And then anything I needed to do, like getting my driver's license, setting up my apartment, finding my apartment. I mean, I found my apartment because one of my coworkers introduced me to a realtor. So, I think it's a place also where they're used to people coming from outside that need
Hmm.
help. And so
And
they're
it
very accommodating and
very
helpful.
helpful. Sounds
Yeah.
really nice. So you said that when you lived there, it helped you get out of your shell. It helped you face your fears. How did that happen, and what steps did you take to make that happen?
Yeah, so there were a couple of things. One of them was I found this trail running group, and I found it because I was using Tinder to make friends.
Okay.
And I saw a Tinder profile that
Can I ask
was
a question? What is the population of Guam?
it's about 150 to 160,000 people,
The entire island.
the entire island.
And then, so what about the population of the village or town that you were in?
I honestly don't know the numbers because the villages all kind of blend together.
Okay, so it's really all just kind of Guam is one. It's not like they're super separated from each other.
No, I mean I mean you can drive the whole island in 1 to 2 hours. So
Okay.
it's a small place.
Okay.
Both geographically and population wise.
Okay.
It's
So
very
it's still
small.
150,000. That's not a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I see this profile and it's a guy standing under a waterfall and you can't see his face, and he's like, I like to run, I like to hike and adventure, and I'm just here looking for friends. That turned into my friend Seth. We're
Oh,
still good friends to this day. And Seth messaged me, if you like running, there's this group, we trail run and we meet every Saturday at this location at this time. So I go one week and it's this wild group of people who like to run through the jungle and climb waterfalls and then drink beer afterwards.
wow. That
And
sounds fun. That does sound fun. I mean, it sounds crazy. That's like parkouring as you do that in the city. That's like nature parkouring.
yeah, yeah. And the second trail I did with them, it was 9 miles across the island. And there was this one waterfall that you were supposed to climb. They had a rope tied to it, and it was a complete vertical climb. and I didn't have the upper body strength to do it. So I tied the rope around my waist, and the guy I was on trail with just sat at the top of it and pulled me up by my waist.
Oh my gosh.
And
This is what, your first week there, your second week back, or second week there?
this was June. So
Okay.
I'd been there about 2 months.
Okay.
It took a while for me to really meet people because I was still getting settled in.
Mhm.
And then trying to figure out how to make friends was a big part of it. And then
Mhm.
I think
Was
something I
Meetup
learned,
using meetup.com for this, or some different site?
yeah, I don't think I knew about Meetup
Groups?
back then.
Okay. Facebook
Yeah.
groups?
Facebook, like a lot of it was Facebook groups, Instagram.
Mm.
I joined a outrigger paddling team. So those are the boats, like the canoes with the outrigger thing on the side, and you're paddling. I joined one of those. Actually, it's funny. The dating sites was how I made friends.
How funny.
I met somebody on another dating site who got me to join his outrigger canoe team, and so
That's great. I mean, the tools are there, like, they have their supposed reason, but you can use them how you want. You can just decide, "I'm using this to make friends," and that's how
yeah.
you decide to use it. That actually leads me to a question I wanted to ask before. What site did you use to find your job? How did specifically did you find that job offer?
So that was I was working for a federal government agency there, and so it was just posted on the agency's website.
Oh, so it's an
It
internal
was,
thing. Okay, okay.
yeah,
I
yeah,
just some people might be listening and might think, "I wanna know where I can find jobs in Guam," so I thought I'd at least ask for those
yeah.
people listening.
Well, Guam is a really great place, especially for people just starting their career. For lawyers, medical professionals, and
Hmm,
scientists, they have a lot of opportunities because
hmm.
of the different communities there.
That's
So,
good to know. You
yeah,
could probably just do some Googling, like, jobs in Guam to
yeah,
take it further. Okay.
yeah.
But so back to your kind of getting into these groups, these really active groups. Is this when you started noticing yourself coming out of your shell more, or shifting your it doesn't sound like you were ever really in a shell, but maybe shifting your identity a little bit more?
I think it's the shifting the identity.
Mhm.
I noticed. I said to one of my running group friends, trail running friends, back on the mainland, my friends never saw me without makeup and without my hair done. You guys never see me with makeup.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
Like, this is something you were conscious of. You were embracing this.
Yeah, I really loved it because our friendship and everything we did together and our relationship was based on basically acting like kids again, running through the jungle, like climbing things and getting in the river and getting muddy and dirty, and it just felt so pure.
This is making me wanna go to Guam, and I don't even like tropical weather, but that does sound so, running through the jungle and climbing, especially the climbing waterfalls, that sounds really fun.
Oh, that's the part I miss so much.
I can imagine. I mean, that like, imagine that's your day. You just ran through the jungle. I mean, you can imagine that's your day, but and you
Yeah,
climbed waterfalls. That sounds
yeah,
that sounds amazing.
and that was something. There's this hike on Guam. It's called SETI 7. Um, and it is a series of 7 waterfalls. And the
Mm.
first couple you climb on a rope, and it's almost a vertical climb. And I remember when I first started with this trail running group, I'd heard about SETI 7, and I'm afraid of heights. I was like, I don't see myself ever doing that hike. This is fun. I enjoy it, but that seems way out of my comfort zone. And then fast forward um, a couple of months to a year, and I did SETI 7 twice while I was there. It's one of my favorite hikes. It's terrifying, but
How
it's
did you
fun.
get over it? How did you get over that mental block?
I think it's some people might get over it by like ripping a band-aid off and just
Mhm.
doing it. I think I doing these trail runs where sometimes you were like side walking on the side of a hill or mountain with a steep drop off, doing things with heights involved, like maybe a mountain saddleback where you can see drop offs on both sides. It was a gradual
Okay.
making myself more comfortable with heights and with doing those
Hmm.
kind of scary, challenging hikes.
So were you doing this every week? It was like a daily thing, weekly thing, weekendly thing?
So the official running group was every Saturday, and I was going every Saturday. And then the friends I made through that, we would often go off and do our own hikes on Sunday. Um, During COVID, my friends and I had this thing we called Schroeder Sunset Beers, where we would run up Mount Schroeder and have a beer at the top at sunset, and then run down in the dark with headlamps. So,
That sounds
um,
really fun.
yeah, it was really fun. So it was mostly on the weekends. And then, there were certain hikes you could do, like a sunset hike after work.
It sounds like your time in Guam so far was like you just having fun yourself for yourself. Whereas in
Yeah.
Baltimore, you were thinking, what should I be doing compared to other people? How can I please other people? How can I look good for a man? How can I find a partner? Others, others, others. Whereas in Guam, you just decided to have fun for yourself. Is that an accurate
Yeah.
interpretation?
You are spot on. Um,
That's really, and do you think that the change of location was necessary for you? Do you think you could have done that in Baltimore, or do you feel like it was just easier to kind of reset yourself in a completely different location?
yeah. I don't know that I would have been able to do it in Baltimore, because part of it is I'm such a people pleaser. You know,
Mm.
I my family was right there, and I always felt I'm Italian on my dad's side of the family, and my grandmother was always, "Oh, Laura, why you have no boyfriend?"
Oh gosh. Italian grandmothers.
Yeah, oh my God,
The
she was
cliches, yeah.
she fit the cliche,
Uh-huh.
and it was really hard to leave her. She was, God, how old was she when I left? She was mid to late 90s. She ended up living to
Oh.
100.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And it was really hard to leave her because I was like, I might leave her and she might die while I'm here.
Mhm.
And so I think a shift that I had when I was leaving, and then I think helped make that change of living for myself, was I need to start living for myself instead of other people. Um,
Mm.
I think part of the whole decision just to even go was living for myself instead of other people.
Mm. I love it. So how long did you live there in Guam?
I was there for 4 years, so from 2018 until 2022.
Okay, and so you went through COVID there. What was that like?
I did, yeah. It was
I
it was
mean,
ch-
Guam was never in the news, so, I have
yeah,
no idea what it was like there.
it was interesting. It was like there were things about it that I think were less restrictive than the mainland, but then there were things that were more restrictive. Because it was an island, we were able to, if you have control over who's coming in and who's bringing
Mm.
things on island, and they had these mandatory hotel quarantines,
Oh.
and so when those were stricter, the we like they shut down the bars and the restaurants for mostly carry out, but like they didn't shut down our beaches, they didn't shut down our hiking trails, so we were able to hike and go something every night. My neighbors and I would all go watch the sunset and on the beach and sit 6 feet apart from each other, but it was human contact.
Yeah.
So we had that, and that helped a lot. It was
Mm.
really hard feeling like you couldn't leave though,
Mm.
because if you left, you had to quarantine. And so a little bit of that island fever that I hadn't felt before set in.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Um,
can imagine.
yeah,
Yeah, that's actually I always feel that on islands. I always feel after a while, I feel the need okay, I need to escape. So I can only imagine that that was even more extreme during COVID. But
yeah,
still, sitting outside after having hiked waterfalls sounds much better than what a lot of people had to do. So I'd probably
yeah,
choose that option over many other options.
yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely. I I didn't have the experience that people had here of almost no human contact. I was
Mm.
lucky that, yeah, I couldn't hug my friends, but I could see them.
Mhm. Yeah.
talk to them from
Mm-hmm.
6 feet apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a difference. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So now I kind of want to segue into, because you have a completely different reinvention story, and that's how you
Yes.
got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But so how did you wrap up? Just give like a summary of the rest of your time in Guam. What was that like? And then how did you leave?
That's the end of this interview so far. If you want to watch the other half of this interview or see how another woman reinvented herself over the age of 35, you can click on this next video here or on the playlist there or in the description box below. And please let me know, how would you reinvent yourself? Please write your answer in the comments below. And if you like this video, the number one way that you can say thanks to me is to hit the subscribe button and then hit the thumbs up button for this video.